The real questions, the real questions. Here, episode 47 of the Block to Block podcast, the best podcast in the world for all things Web3. Here we break down the technology, what's going on in the market, and the ways in which you can benefit. I am NIT Njai,
And I am Web3 Wayne.
and over here the talk is different.
Always, always. We always talking different. And you know, we talk so different that we got to give you a disclaimer. And yes, we mean that this podcast is only for informational purposes. None of this is financial advice. So please, please, please get you a financial consultant or any other financial professional that can help you, increase your cheese, cheddar, mozzarella, provolone, whatever it is, and help you stack your bread. But yeah, let's get into it. This is a special episode. Got a special guest on the line today.
Yes. An amazing guest. And you know the drill by now, y'all. We got to read out the bios for our amazing participants for the podcast. So everybody meet Tola Kasali, who is the brilliant CEO and co-founder of Perspective Developers, a company that combines technology and purpose to create a better future. With expertise in fleet management, logistics, and tracking and tracing, Tola leads a team of talented individuals who are dedicated to the offering of practical solutions to real-world challenges. Tola's story is nothing short of inspirational. He grew up in the streets of Washington, D.C. Shout out to the DMV. I'm from PG myself, but back to Tola. And he draws his inspiration from his Nigerian immigrant father and his mom, who was a screenwriter. This fusion of like a diverse background ignited his passion for groundbreaking innovation, and equipped with an impressive education from Bethune-Cookman University, Shaw University, and the University of Denver, Tola possesses both technical expertise and visionary thinking abilities. In the year 2020, Tola embarked on a journey of entrepreneurship by establishing Perspective Developers. This venture brought forth endless possibilities and opportunities. One area in which Tola excelled was the fleet management logistics, where he quickly became skilled at tracking and tracing. He led projects and seamlessly combined data-driven automation and practical problem-solving skills. And through Perspective Developers, Tola has been able to create efficient lines of data assembly. And additionally, he's been able to establish a robust network that utilizes cutting-edge technology. So this is going to be an episode in which we dive into the brain of a technical genius in the names of Tola. Thank you for joining.
High value.
Of course.
Hey, I appreciate that. Reading that list out loud, that I have to definitely skim it back now. I have a lot to live up to.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'm super excited, especially one, because we have a fellow West African for the DMV. I'm from Prince George's County myself. So always nice to have, a fellow brother on the podcast.
He throwing shade at me.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity.
Totally throwing shade at me, man. He trying to say he prefer you be on here. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
you remember it used to be like you from DC, not the DMV.
But all of us people from Maryland and Virginia want to like tack on, so that's when we became the DMV. But
it's all good, promise.
But that aside, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and like how did you get to this point in your journey?
Oh man, so I can tell you this much: my story is definitely a little bit different. I've always had a love for math and science. I always excelled in math and science. Everything else was very questionable on this thing called life. I hated going to English. I hated writing. If ChatGPT was around then, I would have had 4.5, 4.0s. My God, like you don't have to pay nobody to do your work no more. Oh my God. Do you remember the days you used to hurry up and do rough drafts? Oh, Lord, man. But my story, just generally, my background is, like I said, in fleet management logistics. But before then, I was an athlete. I played sports, and then I got hurt one day playing sports. I had to go back to school. I had to figure my ish out. So when I went back to school, that was at the University of Denver. I had the opportunity to really excel in computer science. I took that opportunity and I never let it go. And I was going to work for companies. Actually, when I first got done with school, I initially didn't even start my own company. I ended up actually trying to go work for Subcon Google and a couple of other companies. And I saw how much of a barrier there was for especially like Black developers to get in. And you're not always welcome in certain areas. So instead of trying to build on their table, I built my own table. And I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to get my first client, which was in trucking, fleet management logistics. I sat in that company for 3 months. He gave me an office, and for 3 months, we grinded a policy where we can now be able to track just not orders, but track data, track who's driving, the driver, the truck, every foreseeable application I was able to omit and build while there during that time period. And from there, that gave the birth of prospective developers.
Okay. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Let's unpack that a little bit. So, you know, you recognize that you had like this skill set within STEM from like mathematics and science, and you got a degree that, complemented that skill set. And going to the workforce and having a degree that should be breaking down all the doors and all the barriers, you found that there were still some barriers. And because of that, you decided to, go off on your own and like, kind of dive into that entrepreneurship lens, if you will. So like, can you tell us about like how was that process of making that decision and really like finding that first client? Like, was it, as Instagram would say, like super easy, doing it like 2 days, or was it like a grind?
When I was at the University of Denver, like I don't want to compare my story to anybody else, but when I was at the University of Denver, I actually got my first client in an Uber. It was a trucking guy, and I told him I was getting ready to finish school. I told him what I was doing, and he says, "Look, Tola, if you're really you're not, kicking me down the can. When you're ready, come see me." And I had a partner, Marco and Justin, and at that time, that was it. We definitely never looked back afterwards.
That's great. And that's a lesson right there, right? Like always being in a position to like share your story, share what you're doing, because you just never know the relationships that would go from there. So
yeah, you never know who's listening to you sometimes. Yeah. Like I know we don't vent enough as men sometimes, but it's good to tell people what you do and where you come from, because like being in Denver, coming from DC, that's a story right there. So people ask, how does that happen? So that's another simulation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you now have your first client within trucking and fleet management. So can you tell us like what does that industry really entail right there?
In the trucking industry, it's all about aggregating data. It's all about finding ways to use data to manipulate real world environments. So you want to take that data and find how you can use that to your advantage. If you know Denver is sending more supplies here, how do you get more supplies of that or of that particular industry to now come by your industries more, to do your trucking? And then it's also about automation. We were able to automate a lot of the, we were able to basically build a network almost like similar to AAA, where you have all these companies, these trucking companies underneath you able to assembly off what you have because you built the data orchestration the correct way.
Okay. That's really cool. That's really cool. And that was your first project within like the first 3 months, you said?
That was Loterai. That was our very first client. That was interesting, man. That taught me how to grind. That taught me that if you can't go in and ask, sometimes you just need to go there and go there again and again. So they ask you, do you want an office? Do you want to sit here? Do you need to do this? And they bring you coffee now because they see the value. So sometimes I know we live in a world where we want to always instantaneously have value. Sometimes you have to give value, and it reciprocates. And in this case, Loterai wasn't my favorite client. I'm grateful for them, but you also learn business as well too. But from there, that only garnished me more opportunities. And we were able to refine our skills working with Cargo RX, where we were now able to basically build the AAA of logistics under one application, where you were now able to track, automate payments. You were able to decipher what's inside of the the vehicles, matrix lanes, all the stuff that brokers are trying to do in the automated world. We were able to create that first, and then people get your name out. From there, I've only had other clients come to me as far as that experience goes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so let's take a step back and talk a bit about prospective developers, right? Because from the sounds of it, for lack of a better term, you're essentially a technology consultant that's coming in and delivering value to like convoluted issues that a company may have, right? Am I getting that right, or can you describe a little bit about what you guys do?
So we actually transitioned. So we used to be just a regular software development agency. Um, my favorite phrase was we use real world technology to solve real world problems, because what's happening now is everyone sees development world and but they don't know how to incorporate it in their day-to-day infrastructure.
Right.
And the ones that don't, they're getting bad advice from people. So that's where we really try to focus on. It's not so much trying to recreate the wheel, it's trying to prioritize the wheel to make sure it's efficient as best as possible. And so that's how we got that jump start in that facility. I forgot the second question you just asked. You had a follow-up question with that as well.
Yeah, just interest. All right, so actually, you just sparked something new. All right, so that was your initial formation of your business, but you
Mhm.
say you made like you transformed. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so now we're solely into drone autonomy. We're focusing heavily on data visualization on the drone autonomy side, and that's because we went from doing logistics to doing logistics with cows, and then I got an opportunity to work with the Air Force doing drone technology and tracking and tracing. So now you have to stay ahead of the curve if you want to be a small business. So now I see the opportunity to evolve. And so that's what I've taken the chances in doing. So now we're very focused on drone autonomy and drone robotics. That's where we pretty much live very heavy now.
And so Tola, you mentioned that, you guys kind of had this process of like slowly building to what you do now. Can you talk a little bit about like what went into those decisions to like make those pivots, right? So like you start with logistics, right, and doing trucking. How do you, then make the decision, hey, let's do this thing with like cows and agriculture and farming, and how do you then go from that and make the decision to, hey, let's take this next opportunity to work with the Air Force and get into this drone autonomy thing? What goes, what's going on in your head as you're making these decisions? And in the background, right, we usually just see like, oh, this opportunity has come in, but not a lot of times we get to see what's going on in the mind of the, we'll say, genius, right, that's making these decisions to take on these new endeavors.
And man, first of all, I appreciate the words. I don't consider myself a genius, man. If anything,
Right.
I'm unique.
Okay.
That would be the word I would use. But honestly, I like a challenge. I like to work on it first. So when Cattle Proof came to us, if you remember Cardano had was part of this before we ever got an opportunity to up in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And so the technology which Cattle Proof wanted to utilize and work with, it was just too new, and Cardano had a hard time. It was called Beef Chain. It was under affiliations of Beef Chain. When that didn't work out, the CEO came down and he heard about what we were doing with tracking and tracing and the logistics, and so he gave us an opportunity to create a first. And so it was challenging. Normally, I like to take on things where other people can't succeed, because if you do, you always have a business model just in doing that. So we took the opportunity, and we actually came out and we created the first live ever NFT on a public blockchain utilizing RFIDs and IoTs to insert inside of cows. So we were able not to just identify a weakness, but we were able to help procure an entire settlement for not just this company, but for the state of Nebraska and the state of Wyoming. I believe you have one more other question. And the Air
Yeah. So,
Force, I'm sorry,
well,
go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say the other part of that question is, what was going through your head to make the decision to, get into that type of work, right? I know that probably was some, a little bit of back and forth. You can stay over here in the logistics area that right? Trucking and that piece. What went into the decision to get into, the beef chain, cattle proof situation, and getting into like this new area.
Man, there's not many people that look like me. I learned that really on the West Coast that do this and have maybe this kind of indication. So, when I do this, man, I'm surrounded in rooms that are mostly people don't look like me, and I'm perfectly cool with that. I have no issues with that. But my goal is to leave an everlasting impression and an everlasting thought process, and I can't do that if I'm willing to walk away, if I'm not willing to take calculated risks. Everything about who I am and where I've gotten to is because I'm willing to take risks to get to that table. While other people's might already be accepted at that table, I have to do double down and all these other different things just so I can put myself in a position. And sometimes you really got to just take that leap, and wherever the cards lay, they'll lay. But you do have to be willing to work. Like an obsession, the kind of obsession that, where people are working 16 hours, you do 20. And if they're doing 18, you do 22.
Right.
You really have to have that whatever it takes mindset, or you're never going to be able to see what comes out on the other side.
Right. One thing I want to, emphasize for the audience watching is a gem that you dropped that I don't want anybody to miss, right? You talked about, one, taking calculated risk, and two, thriving at accomplishing or solving issues that most people want to avoid, right? And how if you really build your brand upon that principle of outworking the competition and working to solve the hardest issues, you in a sense kind of create this moat or even brand recognition of yourself as someone who can go above and beyond. So that's one thing that's like definitely coming out in your story. And I want the audience to really think about that. Don't be afraid to go towards where the challenges are, like where most people are running away. You may be the one who should, brave that fear or anxiety and like confront it.
Man, I lost 100 pounds, man. And I when I lost the weight, I'll tell you this much, I got rid of any more fear factor. And then when my mom got sick at one time, I lost the fear. So now I don't live in the state of fearfulness. Like when I see it around me, it makes me feel some kind of way. It makes me feel like I don't even want to be around you, because if I'm not willing to go for it, then I'm willing to die for it, And I don't think, I think one thing I've noticed was that same mentality we have in sports, and where we're willing to give every ounce of ourselves to make that play, to make that next yard. You must be able to attribute that as well in business. You must be willing to push the limits and also push the people to get where you need to for those limits. And not everybody's going to understand your vision. Not everybody's going to support you, not especially your own family. But you still have to love your family and everyone else enough to go do the work, and they'll come and see what you're doing later. And then they'll cheer for you when you've already been cheering for yourself down this road this whole time.
Yeah. Is that snowball effect?
Yes, sir. I love that. It's kind of that principle of successes in the journey, right? Is like the little small wins along the way, especially I think we experience this a good bit of, like the little wins that nobody else sees, right? Nobody else understand, but when it starts to add up, you kind of emit this aura of like this success already, and then you start to see other people hop on the bandwagon, and some of these opportunities fall on your in your lap and things like that. So I love what you said there about being fearless, especially on this entrepreneurship journey. It's a lot of what it is just like you said, taking that calculated risk, having those little successes, right? I'm sure nobody knew of cattle proof, right? Nobody really understood what it was, but that then led to you getting that contract with the Air Force. So I love what you said there. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so let's jump into the Air Force a little bit more, right? Can you tell us, like, how did you procure that relationship? And you say it was around drone technology.
Yeah, so my business partner, Justin, he introduced me to the Air Force people, and so from there, because we already had a record of being able to prove what we do, so from the cows, from what we did with Cattle Proof, that got us into Robinhood, that got me into Yahoo News, that got me into USA Today. Every like main illustration in the country pretty much picked that up. So now it wasn't so much as like you have to show who you are, because you have proof that's the proof's in the pudding already. So when people are able to see what you're able to do already, they're not going to question if you can build this. They just need to know how much time it takes now. So once we really took that step with Cattle Proof, it actually alleviated a lot of foregoing questions. Before, people will want to ask for referrals. They would want to see prior history of your work. Now it's all about, oh, you're those guys? Yeah, we need you to come do this as well. And that's what we did in the Air Force. So we were part of a team that created the high five technology. So it's a specialty like drones that allow you to have like 5 visions in one. So we were able to come together and create that. And from there, Marengo was the establishment, the company that did this. They won 2 Air Force awards that we were part of. And then furthermore, we were even asked to join the Air Force Prime program, which is a specialty program just for drones and drone automation. So everything we've done, we've done not just 100%. I actually believe in going over. So I will work however long it is till it's perfect. It doesn't matter if the client wants it to be perfect. It has to be perfect to me. And then we'll push this out. So at that point, we pretty much been able to establish just not what we do, but the quality of work we have done. And it still exists to this day. Our previous clients, our trucking clients, have both been able to do successful raises based off just the data architecture that we've been able to build for their companies. Cattle Proof, everywhere we go, we have signs of success. I have a philosophy. I always tell people, my goal is to 10 times X, whatever you pay us is to 10 times that. So in my mind, by the time we're done, you should be more efficient, more profitable than anything working with us, or we create a first of its kind that you can go sell that product like no other product.
Man. Okay. So it sounds like for the previous clients that you worked with who was able to successfully raise, that they need to cut you a check because
Yo, hey, that teaches you baptism under fire right there, because man, on God, like they don't see they there's also some things you need to learn that you will never learn in an MBA course. You'll never learn in an entrepreneurship class. They don't tell you how people are looking to use you. All right, they don't tell you how people see something in you. And it's not the younger people that are doing this, by the way. These are all people about 50 and older, all right? They see how they can utilize your skills, and they see it for their purposes. And of course, they're looking to, make sure their retirement is good, their lifestyles are taken care of, and then you get the trickle down money. That is something I did have to learn very personally, just because I'm actually involved in some things right now just because I didn't learn those lessons. But I also would never have been able to learn those lessons if I didn't go through the fire.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what's beautiful about the entrepreneur journey, right? Like even earlier today, Derek and I was speaking about some things we wish we would have did a bit differently if we would have just known what we know now. But going through that journey, like it gives you more insight than if you would have just got it right the first time, if you will, right? Because now, like through, the only L that we take out here is lessons, right? Like you learn these lessons, you're like, okay, this is how I can become smarter, adapt, and move on to the next one. So, it's a necessary headache.
Man, I'm grateful because, man, I promise you that's only going to make me richer in the next 10 years with those lessons. Like those lessons were blessings.
Mm,
And yeah, everything else. I now know warning signs. I now know paperwork. I've actually, when I
Mhm.
first started this, most entrepreneurs understand this. You start by yourself, or if you're lucky, you have one person that's ready to go in and do the work with you, but that's it. And you have to build a team. You have to really build an organization. And it first starts with just asking people to help you that have these skill sets until you can pay them. And then once you're able to really get to a point where now you have a team, your ecosystem changes. Now you're
Yeah.
able to walk in a room and never look at paperwork because you know your lawyer is going to be able to take care of this, take care of personally everything, and you don't have to worry about that. All you need to go do is be great at what you're doing. And once you get to that point, that's where the transitioning really happens. And that's where, for me, it really took to get to really start going places.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, I love everything that you're talking about, Tola. I think you're really dropping dropping gems for the people out there. Um, Definitely wanna maybe pry you for a couple more gems, if you will, right? So I know with prospective developers, you guys have done, a lot of Web3 development, working with Cattle Proof, and working within that space. Of course, we got the drone technology and things like that. But kind of sticking on the Web3 side, right? What are some advice or maybe some tips and tricks that you can give to people who are potentially developers, young developers, or people who are looking to get into the Web3 space, where they can go to learn more about Web3 development and make that transition into this very nascent new industry it looks like you're conquering right now, right? What would you give to them? Fingers crossed.
Um, so man, that's an interesting question because the times are in now. Like when I first started building, like not long when I heard about Bitcoin, I've had heard about Bitcoin since like 2014, 2015. But when we're talking about the coding side of things, just the way crypto is now being determined in our country, I stay very far. Like how I've been able to ingest and do everything we're doing is because I stay away from the currency side of crypto. Money has never been my motive. What I can build, which is what drives me to do what I can actually give to from the products that we are building is what my purpose is. So I necessarily don't think about the financial aspect of this. So when we build, I always think about how can we, like, I know the government doesn't like crypto. They hate certain things. It's not about that. It's about how can I build a better engine with this technology now. And so one of the way we do it is working with NFTs. From just our use case with using NFTs with cattle, I now took that same concept and we brought it into several different worlds. NFTs are just nothing but data that you parse or you put into a particular order and you sell at a minute date or time frame. So you take that same principles and we now can apply that to any sector. We just so happen to use NFTs as security devices instead of currencies. So now we're able to verify and track what we're doing utilizing Web3 and NFTs, just not as a currency. So we do that by actually lowering the cost on the back end, and we only use it as a verifier. We use blockchain as an enabler to actually speed up our development and speed the process up while we still use other 2.5, I will call them techniques. Like I would say, we still use Google Node Engine to help facilitate how we build this overall architecture. I think one thing is people need to see that Web3 is an additional tool at their expense, almost like Chat GPT or Apple GPT. They're going to be how you utilize this infrastructure in which you're trying to solve. It's always about what are you trying to solve. And once you figure that out, that process gets better and better. You'll be able to go into like my clients now ask me to come into schools or into buildings, and they ask, how do we build a complete network that can allow us to not just track and trace, but now we can verify who we need to verify. So you start to think about just the real world concept and then the technology concept, and you have to mirror those two worlds. It's not always about trying to use a fancy technology. It's what best for what you're trying to do for your client. And if you're able to do that for your client, everything else is easy. Your clients love you. Um, yeah, life goes on. You don't get no phone calls in the morning talking about, excuse me, why is this not working? Why is this not
Yeah.
happening?
Right.
Once you're able to do that, you have a good process of everything.
As a follow up to that, I think that was beautifully put, and that's something that we've stressed on here is, I think there's been the craze and the hype around Web3, and especially during that 2020 to like 2022 period, right? You see the NFTs going crazy, selling for 69 million. We had the Beeple selling for 69 million. You got Bored Apes doing like 70 million every month, right?
See
Like,
where it is now?
yeah, and right, exactly. And on our end, we've always said, especially like we started this podcast right around the beginning of the crypto winter. And so for us, we've always said, it may seem like it's daunting in that, it's the end of Web3, NFTs, crypto, what have you. But those underlying concepts are going to be, merged and married into everything that we do. And I think you put it beautifully in terms of what that looks like, in terms of what you're doing, right? I think, to add to that, or as a follow up to that, right? What can those Web 2 developers do to start making that transition, or start to start their journey into becoming a Web 3 developer? Is there any specific tools that you use, or any place where you started? Did you start with Solidity and just went from there? Like, where was your starting point with Web 3 and being a developer?
So I was a front end developer, so it was very
Okay.
easy for me to use JavaScript using to React. That makes it easier transition into Solidity. But
Okay.
if I was let's say a C plus plus developer or a Python developer, I would want to go use Rust because it's definitely a lot more easier and formidable to what that process is. Um, Both of them have their own, give and takes. It's like a Mercedes. It's like Mercedes and I can't think of BMW.
Yeah.
They have they both have their great use cases, but they are a little bit different in maneuvering. So I definitely will say Solidity will be the way to go for me personally. I actually believe Solidity is definitely a little bit easier of a process, but the way that things are going, I would be naive to ignore Rust because that is going to be huge, especially like with the Bitcoin Lightning coming up. So that would be a huge reason not to ignore that. And Bitcoin Lightning is definitely getting ready to take off. It's the developers are in Boulder. I meet a lot of those guys. I'm not mean like take off as far as financially. I'm talking about is it's almost going to be like how Cardano had buzz around it about 2 years ago when you met a lot of Maximus Cardano people, because you're going to see a lot of a lot of movement head over to those sectors soon.
Okay. You heard it here first, folks, in terms of, a trend when it comes to like development within Web3, pay attention to the Bitcoin Lightning Network. So yeah, a lot of gems, a lot of just interesting insight around the applicability of this blockchain technology, and specifically like how you were speaking about like the security use case, right? Like oftentimes when we talk about Web3, at least in mass media, it's been more so focused around like financial services for the most part, right? But you're talking, and I guess it makes sense because you're working with like governmental clients as well. Like, of course, you're looking at it from a security perspective. Any other industries or trends that we're starting to see, or you've seen like blockchain start to be used a lot more in, that may not be super known or apparent to the general public?
Unfortunately, the media world, because just because of how much storage it takes to get things done, you're going to see a huge shift in media. You're already seeing it now. What's happening in Hollywood, unfortunately, that's not all just about likes and likeness. It has to do a lot with the aggregation of data and supply of data, especially as far as these movies are only going into 8K, 7K right now. So those are going to require a lot higher productivity levels as far as to get the information and data dispersed. So you're going to see, that's why you see so much transitioning happening in the music space. I'm sorry, the music entertainment space. You're going to definitely see that happen. One other area where blockchain is starting to get very cumbersome at is in logistics. I know logistics is boring for a lot of people, but that solves your everyday to day problems. So, and you're seeing actually no sports. You're going to start to see a lot of sports teams. Sports teams, like you see what happened with Saquon Barkley. They're already using data analytics on a whole, and they are using machine learning. What they're not doing is aggregating that data yet correctly. You're going to see that space change, and they're now going to start to use those endeavors to help make those decisions. Unfortunately, worse for the players and people, but better for the business and the opportunity.
Wow. Okay, so if you're listening, you named what, like 4 or 5 different industries in which blockchain is being used in. So it's more than just financial services, guys. It's this technology, especially when we get to a point, I would say like 10 years from now, right? When a lot of the infrastructure improves and whatnot, it's going to be in
New
like,
York is doing AI too as well. New York is using AI blockchain now to track people that are jumping fares and doing that kind of stuff now. So you're going to see it you're going to see a huge emphasis on blockchain in the security world. I know that more than anything else.
okay, so if you're in New York City, make sure you get that 275 Metro pass real quick and stop jumping the fences.
No, you
And
remember when the DC fare was 110?
Mhm.
like I was just about to say, if you're on the DC Metro team, transportation team, y'all don't have to worry about that technology. I don't need y'all looking at that technology. All right. Now I'm not saying I jump. I'm just saying, just in case, just
That
in case.
Saturday night, right?
You know what I'm saying? So that's all I'm saying.
Man, yeah. Pay your metro fares, everybody. Pay your metro fares. Cool.
I
So,
second that.
all right, dope. So you're really heavy into the drone technology right now with prospective developers, and one thing that I would say you guys pride yourselves upon is just like staying, like not keeping up with trends, but in a sense, owning the trends, understanding the technologies, being like some of the first ones to experience what is like the blockchain, the drones, AR, VR. So, are there any newer technologies that's like on your horizon that you're interested in exploring
You
within
gotta
your?
give me two. Oh man. No, I will say that everyone thinks of drones as just something flying in the air. People don't realize your cars are going to be your drones soon. Teslas are going already drones. Um, they're already in this. You just don't think about them in this principle, but they already are, and it would only become more in the future.
Mm, mm. Okay.
Yeah, man, you just a lot of stuff to digest today, y'all. I'm just gonna be up all night, just like, all right, the Teslas with the drones and
Oh, Tesla's already going to be so most people don't know Tesla's been working on modules now where it can drive itself around without you even there.
mm,
Like you already see it in the West Coast now. Like when you go to like if you've been in a Waymo, those are not using any humans in those. The payment systems are currently still not utilizing blockchain, but you're going to see that process switch over very soon.
okay, man. You was about to say something, Derek?
Well, I think that sparked a little something for me. You said that payment system. So does that go back to the tracking and tracing, component that you previously kind of worked on, right? It's kind of bringing that, helping with those autonomous drones, if you will, self-driving vehicles. Is that how you see blockchain being integrated into that space? Now, I guess not only being able to track and trace like those vehicles, but also like who's entering the vehicle, how long they've been in the vehicle, like how deep does tracking and tracing with blockchain go? I guess that's my question.
So what you're talking about is how you will put together the pieces of an NFT. What is the information that you would want to make displayable? And then how do you make it verifiable? So like you would say, payment location, time location, who, where, when, module, all of those things could be used to make a unique identifier or a non-fungible token, as we would say. And that allows us now to be able to confirm, just like a receipt confirms what you're doing in digital mind frames.
Mm. Okay. I like it. Look, I'm learning something. You got my head spinning, man. We definitely gotta talk some more for sure. Listen, shameless plug, man. I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Nah, it's not. People just need to get comfortable with it because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The one big thing I noticed was, especially like when I come back to DC now, our kids don't know how to code. Our kids don't know really how to do any form of software development. It's not their fault. When I graduated high school, that was not a opportunity to go take coding class. That was never available for us. But now we're falling way behind. And it's no longer just about math and science. If you're able to do math very well, you can adapt to coding better. But at a certain point, we're going to start falling way too behind. And you talk about blockchain. Blockchain is going to be a bigger aggregator for AI. And then if you see what it's coming, AI is just not a software state of mind. It's actually going to be a full physical applicable body soon. So imagine we're living in a world where AI is now your competitor instead of just your tool. I
Right.
think that's where we need to start having our mindset shift around, because the way AI is conceptualized today, everyone is using it to enhance what they're doing or to cheat what they're doing. Instead of really seeing that these, especially like Copilot today is very, it's like a junior developer. That's today. I mean, what is it 3 years from now? If you had a kid, what would that be 5 years from now?
Yep.
So the opportunities that we have are going to seemingly start to evaporate if we don't start getting in the game now. And unfortunately, the game actually has competition now instead of just humans.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. They say, I forget by which year, but they say like with the wave of AI and automation, 300 million jobs are set to disappear. I forget if it's like by
It was 2030, I believe, like 2035, I think. I don't, we are in another, this is another thing I mentioned earlier. Right now, this is as an entrepreneur and this framework, what I'm doing, I have an opportunity to not, to take advantage of what my technologies are able to do in my experience.
Mhm.
And so like, for example, I'm working on a project right now where we're going to be presenting to NATO. Um, I'm presenting against people like Boeing, Raycom. These entities have millions of dollars behind them. And, I just got I bootstrapped this since the beginning, but what we have is the ability to do other things what they can't. So it's almost like the wild, wild west. Right now, this is the opportunity. This is almost like how the layer one started, and now there's only like five or six layer ones out there that really anybody can talk about or use.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That same concept is going to happen, and this AI blockchain world that's coming. So if you have the ability to do something, you have to try to take advantage of it now, because The opportunities, especially if you are an entrepreneur that's starting from the bottom, like if your daddy's not going to give you $5 million to go build this or $10 million, you have to go get every single dollar. You have to figure out a way where you can use this new technology to compete against the bigger players.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Right. Like, no matter what set of resources we may have, like, how the big question you should be asking yourself as an entrepreneur is how can you use the current technology that's out there to give yourself a hedge in the market, right? So,
Big facts.
I love that. Cool. So, NATO, are you able to speak about that at all?
Unfortunately, not very much about that, but it is for what we do with drone autonomy and what we're doing with VR right now.
Okay.
Man,
Well, yeah, definitely keep us updated on what's going on once you can. Like, we love to either have you back on or even do maybe a short video. You could give us a recap or something like that, just to keep the audience engaged. Keep them up to date on what you got going on. You're doing big things, man. We got to make sure the people hear about it and see about it and see you be about it, right? So.
hmm
Hey, you know what, man? I appreciate that. You know, that's the one thing I will say in this space as an entrepreneur, all you have is your name.
right.
Like when I go somewhere to an average person, they have no clue who Tola is. To a certain person, they know exactly who I am, my values, my foundation, and then more importantly, my why. And so, you know, once people start to know your name and really recognize you, you do everything you can to keep your name a certain image. Um, that has led me to more doors than anything. I've gotten more opportunity. Like that saying, what they say, you do more business on the golf course is real. It is real. People do more deals with you by shaking hands and knowing who you are than ever looking at your paperwork. Character means a lot as far as being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And it's just about those phases, right? Like phase one, when you don't have any brand recognition or like any, or, you're starting from the bottom and you're like brand new, you got to work your butt off. It's more about your credentials. It's all about like making sure you get that first client and going above and beyond with that first client. And then you're getting to that point where you get, as you say, those referrals. Like people just know your work because of what you've done with past people. And so now they don't have to vet you as much as they may have before.
That has gotten me more than anything else. I still do believe in the that old fashioned. You know, I won't do business if I can't have a drink with you, and I won't accept money from investors until I sit down with you in person. Certain things have gotten me much further than trying to expedience the other way, just conversation. Old way of sitting down with people face to face much further than trying to do text messages.
Yeah. And that's very important, right? Because as you alluded to, especially like post pandemic, we've gotten a bit, I don't want to say spoiled. We got a lot accustomed to just like doing everything virtually. Like, heck, I mean, this podcast is virtual, right? Like everything's via Zoom. You're not meeting people in person no more, but there's always something to be said to having that interpersonal connection, right? Like being able to like see body language, being able to get a true feel for somebody like in person versus just on the phone call.
It helps you read the room. I think that's also, you know, as an entrepreneur, you have to read the room because when you're going to pitch to somebody, they have their whole team. They have everybody that they need. You have to show your value to them. And I believe that helps you read the room by being able to go to those rooms. And that only helps build you better. So even if you fail, just keep, you know, you want to keep meeting people in person. I'm a big advocate for that. Like my biggest meetings, and you ever had a meeting where you presented, you got ready to present so hard, and the person barely shows you any attention online. Like you'll present everything, and they won't even give you the time and day. In person, you least have to leave an impression on them. Like the next time they think about you or think about like, I remember that face, you know, that you have to, if you leave that kind of impression on you, that would give you an opportunity. It's just taking advantage of the opportunity.
Absolutely. In the words of Tola, how can you read the room when you're not even in the room? So there goes
Facts.
another. But
Brother
yeah,
Tola. Love it, Brother Tola.
brother Tola.
Oh man, hold on. Now, y'all making it sound like we about to sell pies and stuff now.
Yeah.
But I agree with you though. Like I was saying to Derek, like just yesterday, but I much prefer doing presentations in person versus like virtually. Because people have their cameras off, be on mute. You don't even know if they engage or not.
Man, you don't know what they doing. Like, man, if you're like me, you have a wandering mind, all right? If I'm presenting and I have all this hard work and everybody is on black screen, in my own mind, I'm already having a war before I even present. While I'm presenting, I'm having a war. So it actually helps the person that's doing work, and it actually helps the people to give feedback, because also what I've learned too as well, when you're presenting something and you don't like it. When you don't like it. And some people can't hide that face when they don't like something. They automatically just show it. It helps build those tendencies out.
Yeah.
Totally. Cool. So yeah, you're just doing a lot of cool projects. All right. NDAs aside, is there anything that you're looking forward to doing in terms with prospective developers, where what it is, say, a specific project, a new region you want to get into, like anything that you're looking forward to with the business?
So I'm getting into the augmented space heavy. The VR space is going to be a huge point of interest for me with what we're doing with drones. So we're trying to do it first with VR, AR simulation with real-time display and drones, with multifaceted drones. So we actually have some things happening that allows us to do some really cool things with drones, and then to display it's going to be even better, and that's to come. I would like to actually, I have a couple of demos coming up, so I would like to bring, if you guys will allow me back on here, and I could do it like a full display demo where you guys can even actually put them on, and you can start to play with these real live action drones that we're going to be doing things with.
Yeah, I'm with it.
Shoot, sign me up. Where I gotta sign? Like, let me know.
All right, that's
Andrews Air Force Base. That's all.
All right, like,
oh, okay.
my childhood. You got my inner child. Going crazy right now. So just let me know.
And that's another thing, man. I think that's another thing we forget, man. When you were a kid, you were so creative. You came up with solutions to problems that no one even cared about, but you never thought or had enough courage or dialect to continue with that. I believe that inner kid is where a lot of entrepreneurs need to find again if they want to find success, because you have to find how to put mud back together from just water. And once you enjoy that, you'll find the keys to being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, at least creativity, and is needed too, because as you mentioned, right, when we shift our mindset and realize, like, okay, not only are we competing with the normal competition of human beings, but also like technology as well in terms of AI, like we have to, technology can be programmed with like all the cool factoids and all the knowledge in the world, but only you have your unique creativity. So I think there's something to be said there about like really honing in there and like unleashing that inner child.
That's it. It's like, what's that my grandma always say, you gotta learn to play in the rain. You to learn the rainbows, you gotta learn how to play in the mud. Oh God, I could be messing
I
up.
ain't never heard that one. Yeah, you butchered it. You gotta go ask Grams. I don't know about that one.
Hey, I saw it on his face. You saw when he said like that right there was a huge, like that. I've been in meetings where I gotten that before, and I'm like, oh damn, like
right. Tola said,
you know where you were going.
We got the message.
Land, but we sort of, just land it next time. Land it. That's all we saying. Just land it next time.
And it's like he's butchering all the quotes. We ain't never said that. Oh man. Love it, love it. But I know we've been here for nearly an hour, so we could wrap up with just a couple more things. So you already talked about like what you're most excited about. Can you say for that tech entrepreneur that's watching and listening, right? You gave a lot of gems already, but for that one person who's like scared to jump in because what is like analysis paralysis, they may feel like they don't have enough money to do their business or whatever reason they're giving themselves. What advice do you say for that person to like just start their tech venture or their tech journey?
You know, man, it might sound counterintuitive, but you can't force things on people until they're ready. Like you can bring a horse to the well, but you can't make them drink. You know, I would actually like to say I would I would love to hope I can give people that are looking for solutions to answer, but they don't know how to do this. Like either you don't have the funding, like you have this dream, you're looking to obtain this dream. You went all in on your dream already, but you now miss gaps. You don't have all the funding. You might not have a complete plan. I look for those kind of people because you can't teach people how to go for it. And once you see somebody that wants to go for it, those are the kind of people I look to help build
Mm.
upon because that's who I am. I've never had the answers, but I'm going to go. I'm never going to have the money, but I am going to go. And so that's just how I am. And I can help those people by telling them make mistakes.
Yeah.
The more mistakes, there's only a couple of mistakes you can't make, okay? And as long as you don't make those mistakes, as far as paying people, like it's almost like Biggie Smalls, the 10 Crack Commandments. Rule 1: don't mess up the money, don't get high in your own supply. Like some of those principles really apply in real life. But you gotta go make mistakes. You have to go be willing to take a chance, and you just gotta make sure that the dots connect where you're trying to go to. Like if you know that you want to be an AI company, like a lot of people are getting into AI, just diving in. Cool. Now, what do you need to go be a successful AI company? To be a successful AI company, you have to solve a problem that the rest of the other AI companies can't solve. So that's where I would tell you to go live in the trouble. Go find something that is ridiculously hard that nobody wants to be involved in and solve that problem. You do that, you become a millionaire.
You heard it first. You heard it here first, folks. Fire.
Go
And
live in the trouble, like T.I. would say. Call me trouble man. Always in trouble, man.
Trouble.
Worth a
Always
couple,
trouble, man.
worth a couple $100,000. Shove it all colors. Yeah, they don't know nothing about that. They ain't from the south. They don't know nothing about that. That was for my southern
Hey, is
southern
that the
folk,
Chicken
man.
Bear album? I
That
forgot.
was for my southern folk, man. They don't know nothing about that.
you're not gonna get this on any other Web3 podcast. I'm just saying the references, you know. Uh, other than that, man, Tola, where should people follow you and stay?
uh, Perspective Dev is my website. Most of my attention is on LinkedIn now. Just because LinkedIn's also getting ready to be the way of the future. LinkedIn's going to be the new Facebook. It's already feels like the new Facebook in some applicable ways. But LinkedIn's the best way to follow me at Tola Kasali. We also have an Instagram that is not that active because it is led by yours truly. And so I'm just a very busy man sometimes. But LinkedIn and our website, perspectdev.com, are the best two ways to find me and reach out to me.
Absolutely, and we'll be sure to put the website link in the description below.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys, man. This is actually pretty fun.
Yeah, of course, man. Like this was very informative. I've learned a lot, and I'm I'm already. You just have my brain buzzing on so many things. So we appreciate your time today on the podcast.
Of course, man. Always my pleasure, man. Thank you, Derek. Hey, you rejected me, man. We supposed to link up like 3 times, man. And like my people, like I love my
That's
people, but
that's
man,
that's
my
crazy.
people.
You know that's crazy, man. Because I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. But hit me up. We gonna definitely get together. We're gonna definitely get together for sure.
I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you.
No doubt, no doubt.
Oh man. Well, thank you all for tuning in for episode 47 of Block to Block podcast. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share out with your loved ones. And once again, I am NFT and Jai.
And I am Web3 Wayne.
Peace.
Peace.